Hey guys, it's Lori Seeley, functional medicine health coach, and today I want to talk about the common symptoms of Candida overgrowth. Um, Sometimes in this group, I feel like I don't do enough education about that. I assume that you guys just already know everything about Candida, and you're just in here to try and learn how to get rid of it. And I recognize that that is not always the case. Sometimes you're here to do a little bit more research and kind of like find out like, are my symptoms really Candida? Because, I remember for like the first 10 years, not the first 10 years, but for 10 years, when I was really trying to figure out if I had Candida overgrowth or not, um, I was more in this space of like sort of denial. And every time I would do research online about my symptoms, it would come up, oh, it's probably Candida overgrowth. And I was like, no, it can't possibly be that. That like that's too hard to treat, because then the next thing of course I would Google is how to treat it, and I was like, nope, 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 I'm not interested in that diet, I'm not interested in taking antifungals, I'm not interested in any of it. And it finally ended up that that's what I had to do. But it took me 10 years to finally admit it, to finally have learned enough about it, and I'm hoping to save you guys some of that pain that I went through, some of that, 10 years of like almost constant yeast infections and sinus infections and bronchial infections and all of the sickness and bloating and horrible digestion that I went through. I want to save you guys some of that. So let's talk about some of the common symptoms. And then we're going to talk about what you do, like once you sort of identify that you've got the bulk of these symptoms or have had in the past, how do you sort of test to really make sure that that's your problem? Because sometimes we can be pretty much convinced, oh, it's got to be Candida, and then we do a stool test and no Candida is found. And so I think it's important to take that step to actually measure it and see. Anyway, that's later on. So common symptoms of Candida overgrowth. Now you have to understand that these common symptoms do overlap quite a bit with common symptoms of a lot of other chronic issues. And so when we have chronic issues, it could be something else that's causing these symptoms, or it could be Candida. Could be Candida that's causing the symptoms, could be Candida that's causing the other chronic issues. So these things overlap. Our body is one organism that is all intertwined and interconnected. And we have to remember that anything could be related to anything. And just because you have Candida doesn't mean you don't have something else. Just because you have something else doesn't mean you don't have Candida. They can all interact together, and one can be the cause of the other, or they can feed on each other. Okay. So our symptoms are headache, fatigue, sensitivity to light, any kind of skin blemishes that you could find. Now, this is going to be like eczema or a lot of pimples or just sort of weird eruptions. Like for example, and a lot of people that I've talked to, I had this eruption like behind my ear, and it was weird. It was like sort of a pussy thing that would happen, and then it would start to itch and hurt, and then it would get crusty and almost completely fall off, and then that cycle would just keep going. And I had a couple spots on my scalp as well. There was one right here and another right here, and they responded to coconut oil. So I would put coconut oil on there, and I think, and coconut oil, while being antifungal, is also really moisturizing. So this was like this like weird like dry like almost cradle cap that was on my scalp right here, and when I kind of would pick at it a lot and try to scratch it off, it almost felt like there was just some kind of a like crack in my skin here that would then get maybe like it felt like it was infected or something. But really, it was Candida trying, it was my skin, my body trying to push Candida out, right? And then the more liver support and the more Candida killing I did, the more it cleared up, and now my scalp and behind my ear is all fine. So, so that's a very common issue. If you have that like in the head, behind the ear, on the nose, I've seen it, or it's just elsewhere on the face. It's just this like weird, like kind of pussy stuff that comes out, and then it dries on, and it's gross. It's so gross. Like there was like yellow stuff, like caked on yellow stuff that would like just come out of my hair, and I could never wear black because it always looked like I had dandruff. It was horrible. So that's one of the symptoms. Also IBS and bloating, and that's going to be like sort of after you eat, you'll notice that you get bloated sort of half an hour later, and that is typically blamed on SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and that can exist hand in hand with Candida. And how that happens is like what that really means, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and this is the thing that's usually like correlated with the bloating after meals. What happens there is that there's too much bacteria where they don't belong. So in the small intestine, you'll have a lot of bacteria in the small intestine where they don't belong. That amount of bacteria actually belongs in the large intestine. And so it's hanging out there in the small intestine, and you eat things that have like maybe they're a little fibrous, like vegetables and beans and fruit, right? Or even just bread, pasta, or meat if you're like on the anti-Candida diet. Anyway, that bacteria that's in your small intestine where it doesn't belong eats the undigested food that's also in your small intestine, because as you may or may not know, our food doesn't get completely digested in our stomach. Our food gets a big jump on digestion in the stomach with all of the acid that's in there. But sometimes when you have Candida, you don't have enough acid in your stomach. That's one of the things that goes along with Candida, is that we have low acid in our stomach. And then already your food isn't getting digested as much as it should be in your stomach. And then it moves on to your small intestine, where you may have an overgrowth of bacteria in there that aren't supposed to be there. And then that bacteria eats the food that you just ate, the undigested food that you just ate, and starts to fart. And that's the gas that you get, because those bacteria aren't supposed to be there. They're letting off gases in your belly, and this is why that happens about half an hour after you eat. You'll start to get bloated in your upper GI, and that's because a lot of times there is bacteria there that doesn't belong there. So that's bloating. Okay, so like I said before, sometimes these symptoms kind of overlap with a lot of other common chronic issues. Now, that could be because Candida is causing some other common chronic issues. It could be because you have maybe a pathogen in there, which could be a healthy bacteria that's overgrown, or something like C. diff, or just any sort of pathogen or microscopic organism that's overgrown in there, or that doesn't belong in there. And that could be going hand in hand with Candida and causing your problems. Or it could be the thing causing your problems, and maybe you don't have Candida. So I want you to know about these symptoms and help you to sort of guide yourself. But then also I want to bring up that maybe it's not Candida. Maybe this is something that could be possibly a little easier to deal with. Maybe it's a parasite, So it's a really good idea to do a comprehensive stool test. And this would be a stool test that tests samples of stool over the course of 3 days or more, at least 3 days. And it'll test your stool for all of these different things, as well as all the things that are supposed to be there. Like it's going to test for lactobacillus and bifidobacteria and all these other healthy, beneficial bacteria that are supposed to be there. And it'll show you if any of them that you want are maybe overgrown or non-existent, or there's not enough of them. It'll show you your whole balance of everything that's going on in your gut. And then it's going to show secretory A. It's like abbreviated as SIG-A, and that is a marker for immune function. So you're going to find out about that too. So all of these things are very useful little pieces of information that are really helpful for you going forward, because it would be horrible to be treating for Candida and then not get the results you're looking for. And the reason is you don't have Candida, right? Now, that being said, a lot of the things that we do to treat for Candida are things that everybody should be doing, whether they have Candida or not, like a low sugar diet and like a low to no sugar diet and antifungals, because possibly everybody has some sort of weird stuff going on, and like taking probiotics. It's hard in this world to have a healthy level of bacteria in our gut because we're all eating stuff that's covered with pesticides. So a lot of these things are still healthy to be doing, but it would really suck to be having this extremely restrictive diet for no reason, right? So you definitely want to study your symptoms and see really what it is. And if you really believe that it's Candida, I mean, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to have that. Nobody wants to find that that's what it is, right? But if you really believe that it's Candida, then test for it. Do the stool test or go to your doctor and ask for a blood test for Candida albicans. And that way you can find out if that really is your problem, and then you know where to go from there. And if that really is your problem, come to me. I'm not here to diagnose or treat, but I can tell you what works for me and my clients and how we've dug ourselves out of the Candida hole and we see a light at the end of the tunnel and we're living in it. I can really help you with that. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for you. And I will talk to you guys again real soon, I hope. Okay, and just comment here if you have any questions, or if you'd like to set up a time to talk with me if you think I could help you out. Okay? Okay, bye guys.